Neil Gorsuch is set to be confirmed in the U.S. Senate to be the next justice on the U.S. Supreme Court.
Although I'm extremely pleased that we'll confirm such an exceptional nominee to the Supreme Court in the next day or so, I'm of course disappointed with what we were forced to do to get it done.
No one should sleep well tonight. No one should underestimate the magnitude of what happened here.
Shortly after Senate Republicans triggered the so-called nuclear option, which blocked the Democratic filibuster of Supreme Court nominee Judge Neil Gorsuch. It was an outcome both sides said they didn't want, apparently did not want to have happen, but now the controversial Senate rules change gives the green light for a vote today that will likely confirm Gorsuch by a simple 51-vote majority. Now, that move capped a year of partisan bickering that began after President Obama picked Merrick Garland to fill the seat vacated by the late Antonin Scalia, who died in February of last year. But Republicans refused to even give Garland a hearing. Democrats argue Garland was a moderate judge who should have at least gotten his turn, an up or down vote. They argue that Gorsuch is cut from the same cloth as Scalia, who was one of the most ideologically conservative justices on the bench. The partisan rancor on full display during the Senate floor debate on Gorsuch earlier in the week.
We learned that Judge Gorsuch interprets the law in a theoretical bubble, completely detached from the real world.
The truth is that Democrats are opposing Judge Gorsuch because they're mad that it's not a Democrat president making the nomination.
When he does his judicial interpretations, they look as if those individuals that make up our society, we the people, are the least of his considerations.
We can clearly see beyond the shadow of a doubt that this man is more than qualified for appointment. Any argument to the contrary is based purely on political opposition.
Well, that Senate rules change broke decades of tradition that required a 60-vote threshold to confirm a Supreme Court justice or a nominee. And now the majority party has the ability to appoint nominees with an ideological bent, and they don't necessarily need bipartisan support. Joining us to talk about all of this is Kristen Clarke. She's president and CEO of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. Thanks so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
You know, this thing had the look to me of a slow-motion train wreck in which everybody knows what's coming. Everybody says it's a complete disaster, but in the end, everybody plays their role and it goes down just as we expect.
This has been an incredibly dramatic year for our nation. I mean, we've been sitting with an 8-member Supreme Court for 14 months, and we should not have been, because the last president, Barack Obama, carried out his constitutional duty and put forth a nominee who was blocked from consideration. So here we are now with the Senate ignoring decades of tradition, policy, and rules, casting aside that 60-vote threshold for the new nominee, Judge Neil Gorsuch. This is not a partisan issue, in my view. If you listen to the nomination hearings last week and look at his record, it is very clear that Judge Gorsuch is not someone who has a strong record when it comes to questions of whether or not he'll fairly interpret and apply the Constitution and fairly interpret and apply civil rights laws.
Okay, but you say it's not partisan, and people on the other side of the aisle would say exactly the opposite of what you just said. They say he's totally qualified, and that they don't understand why Democrats don't like it. That, as one senator we just heard said, John Thune, I believe, from South Dakota, said, you're just mad because it's not your guy.
Well, look, he sat for 10 years on the 10th Circuit. He's qualified. The question is he prepared to sit on the Supreme Court, the highest court in our nation, right? This is the court that gave us Brown versus Board of Education. For African Americans, this is often the forum of last resort when it comes to defending our civil rights. We have life and death issues that go before the court. People on death row whose sentences are sometimes overturned because of the unconstitutional evidence that resulted in the death sentence. This is sacrosanct. And, you know, today it appears that this confirmation will go forward, but the stakes are high. This nomination could transform the court for decades. Since 1967, virtually every judge who's been confirmed for the court has secured bipartisan support, something that Gorsuch just could not do.
These days, nobody seems to be able to do it. Is it worth digging in to stop Gorsuch? Is it worth destroying the the whole fabric of the Senate?
It's not worth destroying the fabric of the court and the rules and the tradition that have undergirded the court for decades. Virtually every nominee since 1967 has been able to secure 60 votes or more, and Gorsuch couldn't do it. And he couldn't do it because of his record. He couldn't do it.
It's not because of the bitterness over what happened to Judge Garland.
It's because of the trucker case. It's because of Judge Gorsuch when he looked at this incredibly problematic case. You have an African-American man freezing who made the decision to abandon his cargo so that he would not lose his life in the cold. And Judge Gorsuch sided with the company over this man. He's somebody who puts the corporate interests over the interests of little people.
You know, Steve Waldman writes in the New York Times that we're actually better off without the filibuster because what it allows for is a supermajority to get anything done, that a majority should be enough to move things to the Senate.
The Supreme Court is a special place. That is one place where we want to be able to put nominees, lifetime tenure. We want justices who can garner some degree of bipartisan support, and that's something that Judge Gorsuch could not do, and that's because of his record.
All right. Kristen Clarke is President and CEO of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not going to let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally. What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.